Chapter 431, Pry. Amazing, amazing. The expressions on the two sweepers who had lost 8 rounds in a row weren't as ugly as the crowd thought, which made the spectators view them in another light. The scene they had created had even benefited Ma Chenyi. It didn't make their loss look as embarrassing. After observing the matches, next was to observe the experts. However, the 4 experts seemed as if they weren't aware they were being watched and simply sat at their own seats without moving. It made everyone feel that they were true experts. Things that everyone else thought was amazing were just trivial matters to them. The crowd didn't mind it. The 2 sweepers got up and then met with the 4 experts, giving them their sincere respect. Afterwards, they politely expressed that they should have another match when an opportunity arises and then left with Ma Chenyi. Due to the 2 sweepers' graceful display, the 3 leaving didn't seem too shameful. Some people even sympathized with them. Under this sort of circumstance, Chen Guo wouldn't mock them as they left like villains. Ma Chenyi may have lost this time, but he hadn't lost face. Once the 3 left, the 4 experts gave Chen Guo a look and then returned to their seats to continue playing. Quite a few curious players wanted to have a match with the 4 experts, but the 4 politely refused them. There was nothing that they could do. The sweeping the field crisis passed by just like this. Tang Ru had been operating the cash register at the front desk, so she couldn't log into the game to watch the matches because her character was still in the 10th server. The sweeper battles had been done by Heavenly Domain characters and had taken place in the Heavenly Domain arena. The normal Glory arena was cross-server, but the Heavenly Domain one wasn't. The Heavenly Domain arena could be interpreted as the higher-ranked arena. A player's win-loss record on the normal server arena was separate from the Heavenly Domain's arena. The 2 arenas also had different rewards. Tang Ru could only watch someone else's screen. She had originally thought that she was going to go up and battle for this sweeping the field, but then she discovered that Chen Guo had no such thoughts. Tang Ru recognized those 4 so-called experts. Among them were frequent customers in Happy Internet Cafe and Happy Internet Cafe employees. Tang Ru had been in Happy for a long time and she knew very well that those 4 definitely weren't experts. At the same time, she also knew that Ma Chenyi had never seen these 4 before. Chen Guo had diligently arranged this. Tang Ru had basically figured out what was going on. Watch over the place for a bit. I'm going up. Chen Guo knew that Tang Ru had probably guessed what had happened. She gave her an eye and then ran upstairs. At room 213 on the 2nd floor, Chen Guo pushed open the door and her first thought was, the ventilation in this room isn't good enough. I need to make it stronger. She hadn't left for long. How many cigarettes had he smoked? The smoke made Chen Guo cough a bit and she even felt like it made it harder finding Yi Shu. Did they leave? Even Yi Shu's voice seemed hazy amidst the fumes. Chen Guo pushed the door wide open and stayed outside of the room. All 4 computers in the room were turned on. The 2 screens that Chen Guo could see were stopped on the desktop wallpaper. They left, she said. What was their reaction? Yi Shu asked. They didn't really have any reactions. They admitted their loss and then left, Chen Guo said. Oh, Yi Shu replied simply. What are you doing? Chen Guo asked. Looking at the 8 matches I just played, Yi Shu said. Chen Guo mustered up her courage. She stepped into the room and sat down next to Yi Shu. On Yi Shu's computer was the match he had just played. However, his studying wasn't nearly as meticulous as when he studied the pro matches. The recording was played on 2x speed and he wasn't looking around in different angles either. In the beginning, Chen Guo thought he was looking in the player's perspective. She wasn't wrong, but it was in the opponent's perspective, not his. How are these 2? Chen Guo asked. They're not bad, but they're still far from being at the pro level, Yi Shu said. Of course, they're not at the pro level. Why would a pro player go to an internet cafe? Chen Guo said. It doesn't matter who it is. Did they record it? Yi Shu asked. They did, Chen Guo, every single match. It seems like my guess is correct, Yi Shu nodded his head. But how did Grand Internet Cafe get mixed up with them? Chen Guo said. That doesn't really matter, does it? It was just a reason to come over and do this, Yi Shu said. How did you play these 8 matches? Chen Guo asked. 4 different styles, Yi Shu said. A normal person might not feel it, but if a pro player analyzed it, he would definitely think that they were done by different people. Excellent era's people should be very familiar with you though, Chen Guo said. They're only familiar with one autumn leaf, Yi Shu said bluntly. Could you be just as proficient with other classes as your battle mage? Chen Guo asked in astonishment. It was true that Yi Shu was called a glory textbook, but this was mainly because he had been playing glory since the start of the game. At that time, the Pro Alliance hadn't even been created yet. Glory was still purely an online game. In those days, he was already an extremely popular player and had a lot of influence on the meta. After the Pro Alliance was created, he had used the Battle Mage 1 Autumn Leaf for around 7 years. His nickname of being a textbook stuck around, but the majority of people knew him as the Battle God. Not at all, Yi Shu replied, which made Chen Guo relax a bit. But they're close. These added words from Yi Shu made Chen Guo stir again. If they were close, then didn't that mean he was at a pro level with all of the other classes? You can't have that much time, Chen Guo exclaimed. With 24 classes, if he practiced each class for an hour, he wouldn't have any time to do anything else. Over time, Yi Shu said. Chen Guo nodded her head. And of course, talent, Yi Shu added. Chen Guo's gaze returned to her screen. She didn't want to bother with him. However, she had to admit that all of these top-tier gods in glory had to have talent. I really want to see their reactions when they see those recordings. Chen Guo clicked in boredom at the desktop icons. It had taken her quite a bit of effort to borrow these accounts and organize everything, but she wouldn't be able to see the results. It was quite depressing to think about. Club Excellent Era. After the 2 sweepers left Happy Internet Cafe, they apologized to Ma Chenyi. What could Ma Chenyi say? He had personally witnessed their skill and had thought that challenging the entire Happy Internet Cafe wouldn't be a problem. How could he know that Happy had so many freaks these days? If he had to blame anything, he would have to blame not scouting out his opponent first and just charging in to try sweeping the field. Moreover, the 2 might have lost, but their performance made it so he didn't lose any face. For the loser, Ma Chenyi, this was already quite a good result. It had to be known that when he found out that Happy Internet Cafe had Lord Grimm, he felt like dying. But after losing miserably, they were able to peacefully leave. After making such an arrogant challenge, they hadn't been treated so bad. As a result, Ma Chenyi thanked the 2 of them and welcomed them to come and play at his cafe. The 2 sides split up afterwards. Ma Chenyi went back to his internet cafe. The 2 walked around for a bit and then slipped into Club Excellent Era. At Club Excellent Era's guild studio, when Chen Yihui saw the 2 come back, he immediately leapt out of his chair. How was it? Chen Yihui immediately asked. We did it. After returning to their seats, the expressions on the 2 of them finally turned ugly. Okay, come with me. Chen Yihui had the 2 follow him. Even though it was his studio, the things they needed to talk about still weren't convenient to talk about here. The reason was because their opponent was Yi Chu, Excellent Era's former god. Chen Yihui could only secretly discuss how to deal with Yi Chu with his most trusted friends. Lord Grimm was Yi Chu. Quite a few core members from other guilds knew about this. However, in Excellent Dynasty, Chen Yihui didn't dare tell anyone. What's the situation? Chen Yihui asked as they hastily headed towards the team. There are 4 experts, the 2 said. That can't be right. Chen Yihui stopped in astonishment. He had even forgotten to walk. Both of us saw it, the 2 swore. Chen Yihui hesitated, but then continued walking until they met with Lu Hao. We've scouted Happy. Chen Yihui went right to the point. Oh, Lu Hao was quite interested. Chen Yihui didn't continue and had his 2 trusted friends say the words for him. Happy Internet Cafe has 4 experts, the 2 immediately said. Experts? How good? Lu Hao was more calm than Chen Yihui when he heard this. A pro player had seen more things, after all. The game had too many so-called experts, but in the pro scene, these so-called experts would just be like fleeting clouds. We have recordings, the 2 said. Let me see, Lu Hao said. One of them went to use the computer and logged into an online file hosting service. He had saved all the recordings here. The recordings were quickly downloaded. This person got up and moved to the side, one launcher, one witch, one assassin, and one striker. Is the launcher chasing Hayes? Chen Yahui interjected. No, all four are male. When the two were assigned with this task, Chen Yahui had talked to them that chasing Hayes was important to ask about. But they didn't even figure out who chasing Hayes was, and there were four more experts. Lu Hao had already opened up one recording. It was the launcher match. Chapter 432, The Experts Behind the Scenes. Chen Yahui stood to one side and watched carefully with the other two. However, with a pro player like Lu Hao here, the three knew that they didn't have the qualifications to express their opinions, so they stayed silent. On the other side, Lu Hao had watched until about halfway through, when he suddenly grabbed his phone and sent a text. As he put down the phone, he rewound the recording back to the beginning and then began to contemplate. Chen Yahui and the other two looked at one another, but didn't say anything. Not long afterward, the room to the door was pushed open. The three turned their heads and saw He Ming and Wang Zi walk in. They had seen Chen Yahui call for them, and then they went over the videos together. Watch this match, Lu Hao told the two who had walked in. Chasing Hayes? He Ming asked. First look, Lu Hao said, and then watch the match again from the beginning. The room fell silent. Lu Hao wasn't wearing headphones, so the match didn't have sound. Everyone watched the screen quietly. Once the recording reached a certain spot, He Ming's and Wang Zi's expression changed. Chen Yahui and the other two knew that they wouldn't be able to figure out much from the match, so they weren't nearly as focused as the three pro players. From time to time, they would glance to see the expression of the three pros. They quickly caught the reason for their change in expression. In the match, it was the moment that the Blade Master exposed an opening and began being comboed to death by the launcher. When the match ended, Lu Hao turned around. First, he gave He Ming and Wang Zi an eye before looking at the other three, who fought this match. I fought it, the Blade Master player replied. Do you know where you made a mistake? Lu Hao asked. Everyone understood what he was trying to get at because there had been a clear momentum shift during the match. In the beginning, the two sides had been extremely even and it seemed like it would be a battle of attrition. But the tides suddenly turned, and so it had turned out like this. The mistake was obviously pointing toward the moment the tides turned. However, the Blade Master player shook his head, expressing that he didn't know. The balance of power in the beginning was only a facade. It seemed like a dirty style of fighting, but it actually isn't. This is a control style. When you find an opportunity, you seize it and turn it into an instant kill. If you don't understand, you should know who Huang Shaoshan is, right? He represents the control style of playing. Of course, it'd be going a bit too far to compare this launcher with Huang Shaoshan. Huang Shaoshan's playing is much better, Lu Hao said. This player used a Blade Master, so even if he didn't like Huang Shaoshan, there was no way that he would be a stranger to him. If you wanted to become a Blade Master expert, studying Huang Shaoshan was a must. When he heard Lu Hao mention this god, he immediately understood. For a player at his level, he wouldn't be unfamiliar with different types of playing styles. He might not be able to realize it, but once an expert pointed it out, he could use it to look and could see some things. Where's the other launcher one? Lu Hao asked. The next match was naturally the one against the sharpshooter. That player immediately came out and pointed at the recording. Lu Hao opened it and everyone began to quietly watch again. Chen Yahui and the other two would glance at the expression of the three pro players from time to time. They couldn't get much from watching the matches, but they could see quite a bit from the changes in their expressions. This match was even quicker than the last one. After watching it, the three pro players looked at one another. This time, Lu Hao didn't speak and looked at Wang Zi to explain. Wang Zi was a sharpshooter player, so after seeing Lu Hao's intentions, he immediately spoke. Compared to the last match, his playstyle is smarter. Chen Yahui and the other two didn't dare interrupt and just listened carefully. He had mainly been waiting for an opportunity to arise in the last match, but for this one, he took the initiative to create it, Wang Zi said. This has to do with the opponent. Quote, He Ming added, the previous opponent was a mainly close-range blade master. The launcher has the range advantage, so if he maintained a distance and fought, the blade master would certainly begin to lose his patience. Waiting was a good choice. But for this match, his opponent was a sharpshooter. Sharpshooters don't have as much range as launchers, but it's only a slight difference. It isn't easy to grasp that difference. As a result, waiting would make him fall from an active position to a passive position, so this time, he took the initiative and created his own opportunity. His decision was correct as well. Quote. That's right, Lu Hao nodded his head at the two's analysis, but the problem is that the two sides have a clear strength gap. Don't you think that his meticulous planning and playing, depending on the different classes, feels a bit strange? Maybe he's just being cautious or perhaps it's a type of attitude, He Ming said. Lu Hao didn't say anything and didn't look at any other match recording. Instead, he went online and took out the match between Chasing Haze and Poplar Beach. In this match, Chasing Haze was being played by Yi Chu, Chen Yahui said. Yes. You've said this. However, you can't ascertain that Yi Chu really was the one sitting behind the screen controlling Chasing Haze, right? Lu Hao said. Yes, Chen Yahui nodded his head. This match progressed a bit quicker. The two sides didn't really fight much before Poplar Beach was exploded to death. However, after hearing Lu Hao's control play style, everyone looked and immediately felt that this match was a prime example of the control play style, except that during this match, there were too many opportunities. Chasing Haze didn't even wait or try to create an opportunity. She simply fought a few exchanges with her opponent and then seized an opportunity that arose and won from there. How does this match compare with those two? Lu Hao said. It's more precise. You could even say that each step was done perfectly. They had actually discussed this match long ago. There's no way that Yi Chu is unfamiliar with a launcher's control playstyle. Don't forget that he raised Su Mucheng up by himself. Su Mucheng's playstyle is another paragon of the control style, though her playstyle leans more towards synergizing with the team. She isn't normally a main aggressor, so this type of style isn't usually seen when she's in a duel, Lu Hao said. Are you saying that this was all done by Yi Chu? He Ming said. No, I'm saying that this type of launcher style is representative of Yi Chu's school of thought, Lu Hao said. There must be someone else besides Yi Chu controlling Chasing Haze. Did you forget that day? That day was pointing to the day when the three pros had run to the heavenly domain, confident that they would kill Lord Grimm. But their two-player duo had scared them off. They had even thought that the launcher was Su Mucheng. There have already been many people who have played on this Chasing Haze, Lu Hao said. The true owner of this character is the one that had been in excellent dynasty. The one that participated in the All-Star weekend. She's only a normal player. Yes, she's Happy's boss. We asked about it, the two immediately said. The fact that Chasing Haze was Chen Guo's account wasn't something hard to find out about. The two didn't even need to ask around at Happy Internet Cafe. They had heard Ma Chenyi mention it. There's no need to talk about the true owner. What we want to know is who else the other controller is. Of course, it's possible that it's Yi Chu, Lu Hao pointed at the video and said, but it could also be someone else. That's right. We also saw that person, the two sweepers immediately said. What type of person is he? Lu Hao asked. The two were suddenly speechless because their appearances were very ordinary. They didn't have any special air to them. Let's look at the others for now. Lu Hao felt that this question wasn't the main point. After closing the online video, he opened up another match recording. This match was the match between the assassin and the blade master. It was one that went blow for blow, until the scene was splattered with blood. However, after 10 seconds, the three pro players quickly changed their view on this because, after 10 seconds, it was no longer a close fight, but rather a massacre. This is a shameless style. He Ming wasn't sure, but his tone of voice also had a little hate to it. The shameless style was something they all knew about. It was usually used by classes with more defense and health. To put it simply, it was an "I have more defense and more health, so if we just trade blows, you lose" style. A player like He Ming, who used an elementalist with paper defense, clearly wasn't suited for this type of style. In addition, it was a style that he hated very much. The reason He Ming wasn't sure was because the character attacking shamelessly was an assassin. Assassins were a class with low defense and health, too, so the style didn't fit the class. "Which match is this?" Lu Hao asked the two. "This is my second match." "Wait, no, for me, it was my third match. However, the first match was just against a normal player. I recorded it, but it wasn't anything of value, so I didn't save it," the Blade Master said. "I don't think you can consider this match as a shameless style. It's just because he was certain of his skill that he relied on winning with just brute force," Lu Hao said. "Where's the other match against this guy?" Lu Hao understood the situation. There were 4 unknown experts, and the 2 brothers in front of him had both fought against each of them for a total of 8 matches. The sharpshooter pointed to that recording. Everyone watched it. It was quite rough. This assassin completely ignored the sharpshooter's attacks and just brute forced his way to victory. This was his confidence that as long as he closed in, he would be able to defeat the opponent. He wasn't concerned about the sharpshooter's close combat ability and wasn't concerned that the opponent had the skill to escape. The person's real strength is hard to determine. He's not fighting against someone close to his skill, Lu Hao said. "I just hope that the other 2 don't play like this," He Ming said. Chapter 433, If I May Be So Bold to Ask a Favor. Striker, which? Everyone watched the 4 matches with these 2 characters. The main people discussing were still Lu Hao and He Ming. Wang Zi said a few things too, whenever it was a sharpshooter match. As for the 2 sweepers, they would only be asked for whenever the pros had any on-site questions. Apart from that, there was nothing else for them to do. From these 2 characters, everyone was able to see their individual styles and could tell that the 2 were very skilled experts. However, they encountered a similar problem as the assassin when they wanted to know exactly how good they were. The difference in skill between the 2 sides was too uneven, so it was hard to measure. They didn't know if this type of one-sided victory was something the other side could do 80% of the time or only 50% of the time. This was actually true for the launcher as well. Even though the launcher had displayed a clear strategy and style, his opponent wasn't able to resist, so it was still difficult to precisely determine exactly how good this launcher was. As a result, the pros knew that Yi Chu had 4 other experts, but their true skill was still a mystery. These 4 experts were very strong. Chen Yuhui's people wouldn't be able to feel them out. However, Lu Hao and the other pros had no way of running over to the internet cafe themselves. Chen Yuhui even had to make things worse by saying, "These classes aren't the classes of Yi Chu's dungeon team in the 10th server. In the 10th server, he has a fixed team. Among them is a launcher, which is probably Su Mucheng. But apart from her, there's a battle mage, a brawler, a blade master, and a ghost blade. All of them are very skilled." Lu Hao's expression suddenly turned ugly. If that was the case, then not including Yi Chu's Lord Grim, he had already netted 8 experts? He had only left Excellent Era for 2 months. How did he do all this by himself? Lu Hao and the other 2 pros were already quite worried, but with Chen Yuhui and his 2 men next to them, they couldn't show it. "Should we try contact them in-game?" He Ming suggested. In order to test for their skill, they needed pro-level players to come out. However, pro players couldn't run to an internet cafe to sweep the field, so they could only do it online. "The thing I'm worried about is that chasing haze is the same as these guys. We can look for these characters by their names, but even if we meet them, the one playing might not be the expert. Yi Chu is too cunning. He's surely taken precautions against the club digging these experts out, so he's intentionally hiding them. We know of their existence, but we have no way of finding them." Lu Hao grinded his teeth. Chen Yuhui listened. His heart thumped and he turned his head to say to his 2 people, "You 2. For now, go frequent Happy Internet Cafe. Try and look for these experts. You shouldn't need me to tell you how exactly you should do this, right?" "Understood." The 2 nodded their heads. "Okay, try to get more information. Find more recordings to get back to us. That way, we'll be able to know their skill." Lu Hao accepted Chen Yuhui's plan. We can try contact them in-game too. After all, the things you talked about are only a possibility and not a fact, He Ming said. Lu Hao nodded his head and then told Chen Yahui, find out where these characters are and then we'll personally meet up with them. Okay, Chen Yahui nodded his head. Soon afterwards, Chen Yahui left with his 2 men. The remaining Lu Hao and the 2 pros looked at each other and then exposed their true feelings. Dismay. They were in absolute dismay. Yishu only had 1 helper and that was enough to scare the 3 of them from making any hasty movements, let alone another 4. They might not know exactly how skilled these 4 were, but the 2 weren't weak to dominate those 2 sweepers. The pro players already had some idea of their level though. If these 4 helpers were under the lead of a god like Yi Chu, the 3 of them definitely wouldn't win. I remember that when we met them, it wasn't just the 2 of them. There was also a battle mage with them, Wang Zi recalled. As a result, the 3 immediately thought of the experts in the 10th server that Chen Yahui had talked about. There was a battle mage among them. A battle mage trained by Yi Chu would definitely be terrifying, He Ming muttered. The 3 had never been concerned with characters. This was because glory characters weren't bound to anyone. Anyone could use the character as long as they had the card. This was why chasing Haze was such a mystery. She had displayed different skill levels several times, making it so no one had any idea who was behind the character. They didn't care who the real owners of these cards were. They wanted to know who the player that displayed such skill was. For a moment, the room was silent. Lu Hao stared at his computer screen. Who knew what he was thinking? Meanwhile, in Happy Internet Cafe, after the sweeping the field, the customers in the Internet Cafe had returned to playing their own game. The previous commotion had quickly turned into the past. As for those 4 experts, 2 of them had already left. They were now with Chen Guo and Yi Shu in a room. Apart from them, there were 2 other people. The owners of 2 of the 4 characters. Sorry for troubling you, Chen Guo poured water for the 4 of them. It's nothing. Thank you boss, the 4 didn't object. The 4 of them were quite close with Chen Guo, which was why Chen Guo had asked them for help. Even though they were a bit puzzled, they happily agreed. Afterwards, they couldn't help be curious and wanted to know what Chen Guo had been up to. There's one more thing I want to trouble you for with, Chen Guo said with difficulty. What is it? Tell us, the 4 were quite happy. Can you sell me your accounts? Chen Guo said. What? The 4 stared dumbly. What are you trying to do? The 4 hadn't gotten their previous questions answered yet and now another thing had come up. The 4 weren't willing to sell their accounts. They were all old players. Their characters had been bitterly trained up. They weren't in need of money either. Why would they sell their accounts? Or maybe switch. I'll trade the accounts for accounts with the exact same character. Your original equipment, money, materials, quest progress, arena record, I'll do my best to match them. I'll guarantee that besides the character's name, everything else will be basically the same as before, Chen Guo said. All of those might be the same, but what about our friend? Our guild, one person said. I'll have to trouble you with figuring that out yourself, but everything I can do, I'll do well, Chen Guo said. The 4 looked at each other. They couldn't understand Chen Guo's intent. One person shook his head. Boss Chen, we've all been playing at your internet cafe for a long time. Our relationship isn't bad either. We can be considered friends. For a small matter like that, we can help you out, no problem. We didn't really mind that you didn't give us an explanation. But now, your offer is really odd. If you don't tell us the reason for doing all this, we can't feel comfortable agreeing. That's right, another person nodded his head. Chen Guo knew that it wouldn't go smoothly. She turned her head and gave Yishu a death glare. These 4 were frequent customers. Yishu had come 2 months ago, so they recognized him. Right now, he was sitting right next to Chen Guo and looked as if he was the boss. They had been puzzled about this when they first arrived in the room. When a critical point in their discussion had appeared, Chen Guo had unexpectedly looked towards him. The 4 were filled with doubts. They were currently wondering whether this guy had somehow seduced Boss Chen and had now become the owner of Happy Internet Cafe. But when he spoke, his words made them completely shocked. To tell you guys the truth, I'm Yi Chu, that person said. What? The four were doubting whether they had heard correctly. Yi Chu. Did you not hear him? Chen Guo said. Which Yi Chu? The four were clearly in disbelief. If this was in a normal situation, Chen Guo would definitely be enjoying this scene, but today, they were discussing serious matters, so Chen Guo didn't laugh out loud. She just stayed silent, letting the four know they hadn't heard wrong. God Yi Chu, how could you be here? One person said. After I retired, I came here to find work. Yi Shu told the truth, but the four facing him were all showing an expression that they didn't believe him. I'm planning on using this year of rest to create a team, Yi Shu said. Ah, so the rumors were true, one person said excitedly. Another person blurted out, did you see our characters and want to buy them to use in the Pro Alliance? You're thinking too much, brother. Yi Shu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This person had realized this and his face went red. Are you really Yi Chu? One person was still doubtful. He really is. How could I lie to you guys? Chen Guo said. The problem is, you've never seen the real Yi Chu. Maybe he's tricked you, too, that person said. Then how can I prove I'm him? Yi Shu asked. The four scratched their heads. Yi Chu had never shown himself to the public, so they didn't know how they could prove he was Yi Chu. Show a dragon raising its head, one person suggested. What if he just flukes it? I'd like to see you fluke it. I'm not afraid of 10,000, I'm only scared of one. The four began to argue with each other. How about I find someone you guys recognize to do a video chat and have them verify that I'm Yi Chu? Yi Shu said. People we recognize? Like who? The four were puzzled. Pro players, of course. Anyone I've added on QQ should be fine, Yi Shu said. Quote, Wang Jiaxi, Li Shuan, Xu Huiliu, Su Mucheng. Their classes were different, so their idols were different. At this moment, their answers were all different. Chapter 434, Disappearing Characters. The majority of players in Happy Internet Cafe supported Excellent Era and they really did like Excellent Era players. However, many of the classes that players used weren't among Team Excellent Era. A team usually had around 11 or so players. Glory had a total of 24 classes, so a team couldn't have all the classes. In addition, even if they did, just because the fans supported the team didn't necessarily mean their favorite players had to be from there. For example, Team Excellent Era didn't have any witches, strikers, or assassins. As a result, the witches liked the great Wang Jiaxi, while strikers liked the famous Han Wenqing. However, because of the rivalry between Excellent Era and Tyranny, Excellent Era fans generally didn't like Tyranny, so fans who played strikers wouldn't like Han Wenqing, but rather Xu Huiliu, a very outstanding player in Team Royal style. From this, it could be seen that all-star players were certainly popular, but it didn't necessarily mean that everyone liked them. First-string and second-string players also had their own loyal fanbases. For example, the Assassin player's favorite pro wasn't the all-star, Yang Kong, but rather Team Void's Li Zan. And as it turned out, among the four Excellent Era supporters, only the launcher liked an Excellent Era player the most, Su Mucheng. Okay, so these four. Come, Yi Shu said as he got up. Everyone got up and went over to room 213. The internet cafe computers were fit with all sorts of accessories. As Yi Shu logged into his QQ, he said, let me see who's won. Since things had gotten to this step, the four looked at each other and were already quite convinced that the person in front of them was Yi Chu. No one is on, but when Yi Shu said this, the four immediately began to doubt him again. Let me see if they're invisible. As a result, Yi Shu clicked on 4 names from his friends list and sent them each a message. None of the four replied. The 4 players behind Yi Shu didn't say anything. They had already decided that if there was no video proof, then they wouldn't believe him. Who knew if this guy had just found 4 ghost accounts to put up an act? Lend me your phone, Yi Shu asked Chen Guo. You're going to call Miu Miu? Chen Guo asked. Yeah. The call went through. Yi Shu said a few words on the phone. The 4 once again began looking at each other, becoming convinced again. Suddenly, one of the 4 chat windows on QQ replied and directly sent a video call request. Yishu accepted and then moved away to let everyone see. The face on there was clearly Su Mucheng's. She waved her hands and smiled at them. Seeing that no one was replying, Su Mucheng typed, "Hi everyone. I'm Su Mucheng. The person you're looking at is Yi Chu." Ah. The 4 were completely convinced now. That Su Mucheng fan was so excited that he didn't know what to say. Eyeing the headphones on the desk, he was hesitant on whether he should go and grab it or not. But during this moment of hesitation, Chen Guo grabbed it and put it on. "Hey, Miu Miu." Chen Guo also waved her hands. Afterwards, the two began chatting. The first 3 sentences were about their current situation. After 5 sentences, they began going off topic, and after 10 sentences, none of the 5 brothers knew what they were chatting about. Everyone, Yishu could only ignore Chen Guo and look towards the other 4. The 4 had only just regained their composure. They were completely convinced. Their expressions of doubt had changed into expressions of excitement and shock towards Yishu. After a moment of silence, one of them finally spoke. "God, signature." "No problem. Let's leave for now to talk," Yishu suggested. Okay. The 4 nodded their heads. As they left, that Su Mucheng fan looked at the smiling Chen Guo with a face full of envy. What? Done. Wait for me, Chen Guo immediately called out, when she saw they were leaving. She said bye to Su Mucheng and then stopped the video call. They returned to the living room. After verifying Yishu's identity, their attitudes were completely different. They had no idea what to do with their hands and feet. Their favorite players might not be from excellent era, but their favorite team was absolutely excellent era. It was easy to see just how much they respected Yi Chu. When they arrived at the living room, at first, they were cautious, but they soon began to open up. All sorts of crazy questions began being asked. Everyone, let's first talk about the previous matter." Yishu switched topics. "There's no need to talk about that. If it's to help God Yi Chu, I have no problem with it," one of them vouched. Afterwards, another one nodded his head. The remaining 2 were still conflicted. Discarding an account they had put in so much time and effort into wasn't so easy. It was true that Chen Guo promised she would do everything she could to keep their equipment, items, quests, and even records as close as possible to the original. Their friends list and guilds were a bit troublesome, but they could be dealt with. However, something like a name, which didn't have any influence on anything in the game, was what was stopping them from agreeing. A different name made it feel like the character was completely different. Because Yishu and Chen Guo understood this, which was why they didn't say that it was all the same. They could only quietly wait for their decisions. After a long moment of silence, seeing that the 2 were still conflicted, Yishu also sighed. He told them all of the difficulties he had come across. The 4 listened in shock. No matter what, a team trying to suppress their former god and captain into the grave was something they couldn't accept. Their image of excellent era crumbled and the 4 were no longer fans anymore. At this moment, the 4 hoped that the god would successfully form a team, return to the Pro Alliance, and give excellent era a good beating. Take it. The 2 conflicted players directly put their account cards onto the table. Thank you. God, good luck. The other 2 also took out their cards and said. Of course, Yishu said. We'll definitely support your team. Thank you. The 4 happily handed over their account cards and gave their blessings. Of course, they weren't going to refuse Chen Guo's compensation. Chen Guo handled matters cleanly too and immediately went online to search for appropriate cards. The Glory player base was massive. Finding 4 appropriate cards wouldn't be too difficult. After all, these 4 characters weren't anything incredible. However, no matter how easy it would be to find one, there was no way she could be quicker than the 4 of them handing over their cards. With the business finished, the 4 couldn't help but pay their respects to the god before leaving in satisfaction. What do we do with these 4 accounts? Chen Guo finally found the opportunity to ask Yishu. The best thing to do is not use them, Yishu said. Okay, Chen Guo nodded her head. Yi Shu had already explained to her his thinking. Actually, a big portion of the reason why they asked for these 4 accounts was to save these 4 normal players from encountering any trouble. There was no doubt Excellent Era's people would find these 4 characters to test their strength. If these 4 characters were still with those 4 characters, they would be constantly dying and there was no way they would be able to continue playing the game. Even though none of this would let Excellent Era reach their goal, the 4 players would undoubtedly be 4 pitiful sacrifices. Yi Shu and Chen Guo felt too bad doing such a thing to them, so they thought of finding a way to acquire these 4 accounts. Yi Shu and Chen Guo only had limited resources, so their deal was quite good already. That night, Yi Shu continued to power level like usual, while Chen Guo accompanied him. On Excellent Era, they didn't dare casually provoke them. Excellent Dynasty's group of players were constantly keeping an eye out for these 4 characters. Offline. 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 All 4 characters were offline and never went online. It was an easy task to do, but the people doing them would get annoyed eventually. For Lu Hao and Chen Yahui, they were even more annoyed, waiting for the news. They wanted to know what the skill levels of these experts were. How strange. None of these 4 characters have gone online. What's going on? Chen Yahui had waited for the entire night. He didn't do anything. All he saw was the night getting later and later. He reckoned that Lu Hao was going to sleep soon, so he discussed this issue with Lu Hao on QQ. Be patient. There's still time. Lu Hao seemed quite calm. The last few times he lost his temper, the results had been quite tragic. Do you think that Yi Chu might have predicted we'd do this, so he prepared 4 one-time use characters? Chen Yahui wasn't stupid. He had already guessed the truth. It's possible, Lu Hao might hate Yi Shu, but he didn't dare underestimate him. If that's the case, meeting up with the real players might not go smoothly either, Chen Yahui said. We'll see when they go take a look around tomorrow, Lu Hao said. The night went by. On Excellent Dynasty, there were always keeping an eye for these 4 characters, but the results never changed. The next day, the 2 sweepers went to Happy Internet Cafe. If it isn't the 2 experts? When the 2 walked in, Chen Guo immediately recognized them. Internet Cafe customers went in waves. The ones from yesterday might not be here today, so not many recognized the 2. Boss, you must be joking. Here, we don't dare call ourselves experts, the 2 hastily said. Haha, Chen Guo only laughed and didn't say too much. Are you going online? Of course, the 2 said. Chen Guo gave a shout and the front desk opened up 2 computers for them. The 2 immediately went up. The brother experts? No, Chen Guo denied. When will they be here? The 2 asked after being a bit startled. Chen Guo said with a face full of astonishment, how would I know? They're all customers. How could I know who comes at what time? Chapter 435, Whoever moves first loses. Chen Guo's words made the 2 of them cough blood. Even though those words were very reasonable, the 2 had some inside information. How could Happy Internet Cafe's experts be random customers? They had to be inside the Internet Cafe, preparing to create a team with Yi Chu. This boss was clearly lying to them. The 2 were thinking in this way, but on the surface, they couldn't express that, we see through you. They could only sigh regretfully. Then do you know when these brother experts usually come? I haven't really paid attention to that. Chen Guo really looked like she was telling the truth. Who knew how many people had been duped by her like this, not understanding how fearsome Boss Chen was. Right now, her expression looked completely innocent. The 2 spies were suddenly entranced by her. They felt as if this sister couldn't say anything wrong and they must have made a mistake. Luckily, the 2 quickly had reason take over and after regaining their composure, they calmly spoke, Are the computers ready? Area 14, number 15, Chen Guo pointed to where the computers were located. If the experts weren't there, they could only wait, while talking with the other Internet Cafe guests to see if they knew anything. The majority of the people in the Internet Cafe played Glory and there were many like-minded people. If they wanted to, making Glory friends in the Internet Cafe was very easy. However, nowadays, computers were essential to households, so those who came to the Internet Cafe were usually already in a group with 3 or 5 other friends. As a result, there weren't too many who would actively look for friends when they were already with a group of friends. These two spies had come with a different purpose though, so they were different. After sitting down, the people to the left and right of them were playing Glory. The two quickly logged into the game and looked at their neighbors with a smile. The two took the opportunity to go and chat with them. Unfortunately, their neighbors weren't frequent customers of Happy Internet Cafe. They had simply come on a whim. It would be hard to get any useful information from these type of people. Thus, as the two played Glory, they would look towards Happy Internet Cafe's entrance to see if those 4 experts would appear. But after sitting for an entire day, there were no signs of them appearing. 2 of those 4 fake experts were Happy Internet Cafe employees. If Chen Guo didn't want them to appear, all Chen Guo needed to do was tell them not to appear. The other 2 might not be her employees, but because they had already changed to Yishu's side, as supporters, they would cooperate in earnest. The 2 spies weren't able to get anything out of today. The 2 couldn't just live in the internet cafe, so when it was time to go, they could only pay the bills and leave. Do you know these 2? Meanwhile, Chen Guo had secretly taken a picture of them and gave them to Yishu to look at. Of course I don't know them. If they sent 2 people who I recognized, wouldn't that just be asking to be exposed? Yishu didn't even look. Oh, that's true, Chen Guo said, these 2 will definitely be coming often. What's wrong with having 2 fixed customers? Yishu smiled. With their eyes shifting about, I really want to treat them like little thieves and beat them up. After knowing their identities, Chen Guo couldn't like them. Any action they did made Chen Guo want to vomit. Don't be in such a rush. Let them suffer. Yishu didn't care. What about Lulan / Is there any news from them? Chen Guo asked. There hasn't been any for now, Yishu said. It's been so long. Why are they so slow? Slow? It's only been 2 days, Yishu said. How is that not slow? This isn't just about a game. This is a business deal and a gamble. Wouldn't you want to be careful? Yishu said. TCH, Chen Guo clearly didn't care. The 2 spies went to QQ and reported the situation to Chen Yahui. There was nothing Chen Yahui could do. In the game, they had watched for an entire day again, but the characters of the 4 experts never appeared. In order to be experts, there was no way they wouldn't be playing a lot. Chen Yahui felt that his initial thoughts were correct. Yi Chu might have prepared for them long beforehand. If that was the case, the 2 spies definitely wouldn't be able to get anything. Thinking of this, Chen Yahui discussed this with Lu Hao and dispatched more spies. Apart from the 2 who went to the cafe like usual, they added more people to keep watch on Happy Internet Cafe 24/7. This arrangement wasn't difficult for Chen Yahui to do. Their work was done through the game, so if he sent people to go to Happy Internet Cafe, they would be playing the game too. It wouldn't delay their work. It was just that there were no results after 3 days. In-game, their characters had disappeared and the experts from outside of the game were nowhere to be seen. Chen Yahui was anxious. Lu Hao was anxious. The entire club guild was anxious. These past few days, there were no signs from Excellent Dynasty nor any of the other club guilds. One reason was because Lord Grimm's popularity was still on fire. They really couldn't make any movements with so many people watching him. In addition, they knew that Lord Grimm was Yi Chu, so the club guilds were very fearful. They wanted someone else to test it out for them and die a few times before they move. There was also one other reason. Tyrannical ambition was a good example of this. Tyrannical Ambition's guild leader Zhang Yu was calm when Yi Chu entered the heavenly domain. Their guild had only gossiped and chatted about it like everyone else and didn't make any movements. This was because Zhang Yu was still confident about his previous judgment. There had been some sort of inside conflict when Yi Chu left Excellent Era, so Excellent Era definitely wouldn't want Yi Chu to return. Thus, Guild Excellent Dynasty would definitely go all out to suppress Yi Chu and they should just wait to watch the show. As for Tyrannical Ambition, Yi Chu fighting Excellent Dynasty was simply too good of a show. Both sides suffering would be a delight to see. Zhang Yu's thoughts weren't complicated or anything. He had talked about it in the 10th server with many other guilds before, so many of the other guilds had this type of thought too. They really didn't want to move. It would have been so nice if Yi Chu hadn't come to play the game. Many people shared this wish. Thus, if it was highly probable that a guild would stand out, everyone was more than happy to wait a bit. However, on the first day, Excellent Era had only sent out Lu Hao and 2 other pro players to move. Their scale was too small. The other guilds hadn't known about it. As a result, it seemed like Excellent Era was only observing too and couldn't help but feel a bit worried. These days, the spies in Excellent Era were having a tough time. They were trying all sorts of ways to get information on how Excellent Era was going to deal with Lord Grimm. The peaceful leveling these past few days had made Chen Guo feel astonished. She discussed it with Yi Shu, and after hearing Yi Shu's thoughts, she understood that ever since Yi Shu had stopped the ambush from the 3 pro players, his plan had already begun. This was because the Heavenly Challenge had caused his fame to soar, making the guilds unable to do any large movements and were waiting to see what Excellent Dynasty was going to do. Excellent Dynasty didn't dare make any large movements either, but the club behind them helped out by directly sending them pro players. With a 20-level suppression, let alone 3 pro players, a single pro player would be difficult for Yi Shu to beat. However, Yi Shu's deception had caused Excellent Era to be completely uncertain to how many helpers he had and how good the helpers were. As a result, these past few days had dragged on in this way. During this time, Yi Shu had come into contact with Lulan Slash. After another contact with each other, Lulan Slash said that he would have his answer today. If Lulan Slash agreed, then Yi Shu wouldn't be alone anymore. How is it? Do you find it fun? Yi Shu laughed. The top guilds are currently playing a game where whoever moves first loses, but if no one moves, then they will also lose. You really are. Chen Guo couldn't find the words to describe her feelings. Those powerful guilds had been played by Yi Shu. He had completely figured out their weaknesses and forced them into a tough situation. However, he also had to have the skill to do so. Without enough skill, how could this situation have happened? During these past few days, Yi Shu had went back to the 10th server for 1 day. The Heavenly Domain and the 10th server were in different servers, so players couldn't just switch whenever they wanted to. Right now, the game restricted it so that the player could only switch servers once every day. In other words, since he switched from the Heavenly Domain to the 10th server, he had to wait until tomorrow to switch back. However, Yi Shu had used these 24 hours well, and with the 4 players in Happy who had reached level 50, he formed a team and set records for a bunch of level 50 dungeons. Even though his unspecialized wouldn't gain any experience, 4 5-player level 50 dungeon records were now under Guild Happy's name. The 10th server club guilds had thought that they had gotten rid of this devil and had thought that when Lord Grimm got to the Heavenly Domain, he would be immediately chased after and killed, so he would never get past level 50. But who would have thought that this devil would be so evil? Just before he was about to hit level 51, he returned to the 10th server to set records. How evil. He wouldn't get any experience in the 10th server and didn't need to worry about Lord Grimm hitting level 51 while setting these records. In reality, at level 50, leveling in the normal server was very quick. This was because starting from level 50, there were many dungeons available. They wouldn't need to kill monsters in the wild to level. The dungeons were enough to last for the entire day. Let alone the large-scale dungeons, there were 4 5-player dungeons. If they cleared them every day, how much experience was that? 50 to 51 was much faster than 49 to 50. Leveling to 51 in a few days wasn't a problem. The reason the guilds didn't have level 51 characters was because they had done so intentionally. As long as they didn't do their awakening quests, the characters of the 24 classes wouldn't earn experience either. They had held out so bitterly for so long, but Lord Grimm simply came back, waved his sleeves, and left, leaving behind 4 records under his name.